Stop waiting for permission. You are not a child and you cannot be in the waiting room of life. I'm kind of seen as like the black sheep or the golden star because I've made it work. You have to get your money up. I won't lie. Money stops nonsense. Hello. Welcome back. We are back for another episode, which I'm very proud about because I almost canceled this recording session. The only thing that saved me is the fact that I actually couldn't cancel it because it's already set. So here we are this morning recording. It is such a cold and windy and rainy, typical British weather this morning. It's actually quite frustrating. I'm wearing a whole sweater. I wore a wool coat to come here and it just wasn't enough. So today's drink is informed by that particular state of the weather, and I'm having a cup of hot chocolate. This is one of the most gorgeous hot chocolates that I've seen in a while. Lately, I've actually been a tea person. I've really been into my teas. More recently, I would say the Puka 3 mint tea. That has been my favorite. Also, I've been getting into chamomile tea. I got some from M&S. I got hibiscus tea, but that was a bit disgusting because it feels like warm zobo. So, this hot chocolate is hitting the spot. I absolutely love it. Very good. Very, very good. I love hot chocolate, honestly. It is my comfort go-to, especially when I'm in Lagos and I'm having brunch. I always get hot chocolate. I've stopped getting hot chocolate as much because fitness and sugars and all of that. But today's an exception, you know. So today's topic is really informed by something I saw on Twitter, which, by the way, I will never call Twitter X, because that doesn't make sense. I've been on Twitter for the longest time and I took the last year off the app because the app became something else when Elon bought it. But I would say I've kind of like picked in here and there from like November up until now. And I came across a tweet. And the tweet was from this girl. She's a pharmacy student. And the first tweet she quote was, "I'm going to stop creating." Something along that line. "I'm going to stop creating." And then she quoted the tweet. And then she said, her mom's friend, this is me paraphrasing, by the way, her mom's friend came across the videos of her doing makeup and all of that stuff and reported to her mom. And her mom kind of sees that as shameful. And she's like, you have to focus only on your pharmaceutical studies because that is what you're supposed to do. And stop all this makeup stuff. Stop all the creating stuff. When I saw that, I was just like, girl, I know what you're going through. As somebody who has been told that many times, I could relate in a very deep level, especially when you're in a situation where you feel like you have no choice, when you're being supported by your parents and going against what they say might mean a withdrawal of their support. You're not sure if they'll still have your back. If something goes wrong, it will be because you're doing this thing that we told you not to do. And that is why this topic is so near and dear to me, because it is the essence of my entire lore. So, backstory about me. I actually went to university to study law. But right now, I am a product designer. And I feel like if you kind of drew the line between the different decisions I made since when I was maybe in A-levels, even secondary school, it was so obvious that I was not supposed to be a lawyer. The main reason why I was nudged towards being a lawyer is because I liked to talk and I liked to read. And those two things are the perfect recipe for someone who should be a lawyer. Also, they'll always tell girls that are kind of like rude or try to go against general societal norms or are able to stand up for themselves that, oh, you should be a lawyer. But in secondary school, I remember when they told us to write out what we wanted to be in the future because we're working on our yearbook and that information needed to be there. And I remember writing lawyer/fashion designer. And lawyer mainly because That was what was drummed into my head. Now, at that age, if anyone asked me if my parents forced me to be a lawyer, I would say no. Because they didn't say, oh, you have to be a lawyer. I don't think my parents were really into, you have to either be a lawyer, doctor, engineer type of situation. I would say that because my siblings are neither lawyers, doctors, or engineers. But they just want you to like choose a right career path to fit what you are or to fit your personality, or they think would be easy for you to navigate. But in my case, I was just like, yeah, you know what, I can be a lawyer. And again, I was watching a lot of Suits, so that kind of really informed the whole decision of me being okay with being a lawyer. It was really the clothes, honestly, and you can see where the fashion design came from. And I just kind of knew that my parents would never send me to university to study fashion design. They might say, you know what, a good idea would be you going to spend a summer at a fashion academy, and that would be fine. So I just knew that, you know what, to get somewhere, I just had to be a lawyer. And then going into A-levels, I was the only person that wanted to study law that actually did not pick law as a subject in A-levels. My subjects were economics, sociology. Other law students had law as part of their 3 subjects, not me. I was not interested at that point in doing law. I told myself, you know what, I could do law in university. And it got to a point where I was really enjoying the business side of things, which I'm not even great at math, okay? I'm not great at math, but somehow I was enjoying the business side of things. And I think I just spoke to my mom one day that, oh yeah, maybe I won't study law anymore. Maybe I will do business. And that is when all hell broke loose in that house. And I was really surprised by that reaction, that I wanted to do something else outside law. And that felt like me throwing away my future. And it was really heartbreaking and traumatizing that I did not remember that experience until 3 years after, when I was in the middle of studying law in university and something happened and I was just like, why am I here? So the whole essence of the story is that I refused to go to law school after studying law. By the end of my law studies in university, I spent the entire time really trying to find the thing for me that clicked. I did writing. I thought I was going to be in media. I did fashion photography. I did so many things that I thought I wanted to do. And then in the last year, I found product design, and that is what I've been doing since 2021. So almost 5 years of me doing product design. And I still have not gone to law school. Even not going to law school was a whole tussle. And with everything, at the end of the day, everything kind of working out for me, even though I decided to go against this advice of doing what was typically expected of me, I'm kind of seen as like the black sheep, but the golden star, because I've made it work despite everything. I've made it work without getting their help. I've figured out how to navigate this entirely new industry and technology, which to them does not make sense, but now nobody's complaining because this is working out. I think the reason why a lot of adults, especially Nigerian immigrant adults, find it really hard to go against the grain is because they have this silent social contract with society and what is expected of them. They feel like they cannot go outside the box of what they're supposed to do. And I think that comes from 2 things, where children are adultified as infants, and when you become an adult, you are treated as a child. Because it does not make sense how you send a child to university or college or secondary school or something outside the country, and when they're back home, you start monitoring their movements. They are thousands of miles away and you actually have no idea what they're doing. And when you're back home, you think that it is the 2 weeks you're home that you can monitor them and make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. It's really the way like you are 28 and you have a curfew and you're really not allowed to explore the way you want to or the way you need to for your age. And it comes from really blind obedience. We feel like because our parents gave birth to us. Everything they say you should do, you have to actually do. And I get this space of respect and the duty that comes to that. But I feel like a lot of society and a lot of bringing up that a lot of parents have is them living out their dreams through their child. So there is this strange sort of enmeshment that happens, that all these things they've sacrificed, everything that they've done, put towards you to make sure that you were successful, your success or lack thereof is a direct representation of them, is a mirror of them. And so they kind of just push their dreams onto you. I won't really say that like the dreams of being a lawyer were really pushed to me. There was nobody in my family that is a lawyer. I think till today, even in my extended family, there is not a single lawyer. And I try to understand where that particular push to become a lawyer came from. I can say now that it really was for the best, because if you studied law, you should just go to law school. And they kind of say that it's just this 1 year. It's just 1 year of going to law school. And then after that, you can do whatever you want. And lawyers can work anywhere. That is exactly what I don't want to do. I feel like I had sacrificed so many years moving towards this goal that I did not want. And it feels like, what is 1 more year? But 1 more year is really another year of me doing something that I don't want to do. And in that moment, I feel like everything kind of just works together for good. How I was able to escape that was really because the Nigerian system kind of messed me up for my own good. So what happened was, my name did not come out in NYSC, which is the military training you have to do for a whole year to serve the country. And it didn't come out for law school. And that was because my university didn't send my results to the right department, which was not my fault. I feel like if everything kind of worked out, if my name went to law school, I would have gone to law school. But looking back, it was so obvious that that was not the path I was supposed to take. I went to the uni to try to rectify it and try to figure out what could happen. And the best thing they could do for me was to send me to NYSC. And from there on, I was able to build a pretty solid foundation in my design career for the 2 years that I was not able to go to law school. That when the concept of finally going to law school came, it was unfathomable. And because I decided not to go to law school, every single uncle, parent's friend came to talk to me about it. And that is where I had to let go of the idea of being a good girl and just obey. I had to let go of that particular notion. Now, I've always been okay with being seen as a bad person. See, I'm the last child. The last child, we kind of do a lot. We push a lot of boundaries. When a lot of people that come to talk to you to make this decision, you kind of sit down and think to yourself that, what exactly am I doing that is so bad? Like, why is so many people coming to talk to me about this particular decision I am making for my life? I think to them it's because it looks like it is going against the norm, and I'm kind of throwing my life away. But that is not the case. If you look at it holistically, you can see that I started something, maybe support me with this thing, but I'll say that, okay, take another year. If you can get this and that, then you can continue on this path. But none of that was given to me, and everyone was trying to change my mind. And I feel like a lot of people, the reason why they continue on paths that they don't want to continue on because their parents said so, or they're socially conditioned to think that that is what they're supposed to want, is because they're scared of being seen as a bad person. They're scared of putting down boundaries. And the thing about putting down boundaries is that you need to actually put down these boundaries and tell people, no, I am not going to do this. This is my life. And this is the decision I've made for myself. Putting down boundaries will have people not liking you, honestly. And you have to be fine with people not liking you, or people saying that, oh, you have changed. And yeah, it is fine to change, but you have the responsibility to stay true to yourself, to make sure that you are making the decisions for yourself that you want, for the life that you want. Another thing I would say that makes this pretty prevalent is that I feel like we are not really taught to be human. I studied sociology, and I might be kind of, rusty in my sociology knowledge. It's been a while, okay? But I feel like there's this nature or nurture conversation that we had for a while. Are people a product of their society, or how they were brought up, or are they a product of innately how they are? And that debate still goes on. But I feel like the way parenting has been done in an African sense is you just being a yes sir, yes ma'am, no sir, no ma'am type of person, where you find it really hard to ask questions. You find it really hard to question authority, to talk and say your mind. And this is something that I actually had to start working on in the last 2 years. Okay, quick interruption. Now, if Let's Have Drinks feels like that conversation you've always wanted to have, I think it is time for you to subscribe wherever you're listening to this from. Also, follow us on all socials at Let's Have Drinks Pod. Rate the podcast, share on socials, share with your friends. Also, subscribe if you're on YouTube, comment, do all the lovely stuff. It genuinely helps the podcast grow and helps more people see these conversations. And also, it just makes me know that you're enjoying the podcast. So, yeah, thank you for doing that. And let's continue on to the conversations. And this is coming from somebody who has been low-key, doing things my way. I realized in the workplace, especially when it comes to managers, that if my manager says ABC, I would be like, okay, fine, ABC, even though I don't agree. And it was a particular manager that told me that, you can disagree. You actually don't have to agree with everything I say. If you're seeing something from a different perspective, it's okay for you to say, I understand this perspective you're coming from, but what about this point of view? It is okay to see things from a different light. It's okay to say, no, I do not agree with that. And that was so jarring to me as somebody who grew up in the type of society I grew up. Because talking back to elders, or not agreeing with somebody that is older than you, or not just going along with their point, is seen as disrespectful, and nobody wants to be disrespectful to anyone. So being in a whole different space opened my eyes to the fact that we actually have a problem with authority, and that is why there is a lot of issues with governance that we're dealing with, because we cannot stand up to our principals or our manager. So how are we going to set up to somebody in government that is looting or not providing the basic amenities that we want? We just think, because they're in authority, I can't talk to them. And that is why we are where we are. And because a lot of people are brought up with this sense of blind obedience, or this sense of not being able to talk to authority, realize that you cannot articulate opinions and you cannot take up space. And this also affects making decisions for the future. Realize that you actually have not really made any decisions for the future for yourself. Realize that you actually outsource your decision making to someone else who thinks they know best for you, but you are the one living your life. And I feel like sometimes it might be easier to outsource that thinking or that decision making of where you should go, who you should be with, because when things go wrong, then you have somebody to blame. But I think if we look at it from another point of view, we realize that even if you're blaming someone for your life going a particular way that you do not like, it's still not them suffering that disappointment or that reality. It is you living in that disappointing reality. And so it is pretty important that you figure out how to make those life decisions for yourself. And how to do that is by really knowing yourself, knowing what you like, knowing what you want, making a plan, introspecting, maybe having a journal and just thinking through your day. What did I like today? What did I not like today? What did I think about this interaction I had with this person? And just reflecting on those things. There was something that a friend of mine who studied psychology told me, and this was before I started really writing down my thoughts, where he told me to journal in my head, or is it reflect on my day and reflect on my interactions and what I took from that. And that was something I did for about a month, and that really helped me to be able to play back decisions I've made from a more objective sense. And that made me see someone else's point of view that I did not see in that moment. And that helped me in the future react differently to a similar situation that I found myself in. So if you're in this sort of position and you feel like it's time for me to sort out my life and detach from all these expectations, where should you start from? I think the first thing you should start from is to stop waiting for permission. You are not a child. You need to just grab life by the horns and go. Because if you wait for permission, you're just going to keep waiting and life will pass you by. And you really get frustrated by people that you're seeing that are not holding themselves or waiting for someone to tell them that, okay, it is good to do this thing. And you cannot be in the waiting room of life all your life, because then you just be wasting away. You have to be really intentional about the decisions you want to make and the type of life you want to live. And you can't do that by waiting for someone to tell you that, go ahead. There's something interesting I hear concerning this, which is apologize instead of asking for permission. How do I feel about that? I've actually tried that one time. I tried that one time when I wanted to, I think, go for like an Easter getaway. And I was in uni. I kind of paid for a plan to go. It blew up in my face. Maybe I didn't plan it well. It really did blow up in my face and it was really painful. But that was the last time that happened. And the next time I planned it better. I didn't even have to apologize, honestly. I just went. I just did my own thing. And that started the cycle of me just traveling by myself, taking those trips. And as someone who likes to travel, that was supposed to be like the first step to me doing that. But with that blowing out of my face, I realized that the best thing for me to do next time is to plan better. I didn't even have to apologize to anyone. It was just, I'm doing this, I'm going on this trip, full stop, and we move. Another thing, which was something I think I had to tell myself in the last year, is you are not in trouble. I feel like a lot of us have heightened anxiety of some sorts. We just kind of think that we're constantly in trouble. Because when you hear your name thunder through the house when you were a child, it's because you did something wrong. I realized even with living with Debo, that sometimes I would hear him call me and immediately my mind goes to, what have I done wrong? And that is a really weird way to live, because half the time when they're screaming your name growing up, it's because you've done something wrong. And this is just somebody that is in my house that is just trying to see if I'm doing okay upstairs because I've been quiet for a long time. And I realized that a lot of us move through life like we are in trouble or we are going to be in trouble. And I had to just keep telling myself that nobody's going to beat me. You're perfectly fine. You're not in trouble. You didn't do anything wrong. You didn't break any plates. You did not write on the walls. It's okay. You're human. Even if you made a mistake, you're human. And mistakes are okay. Now, another one is abandoning timelines. And that is something that I feel like as adults, we have to keep reminding ourselves that because somebody is doing something at this particular age or time and we're not doing it, doesn't mean that we are behind. I had to learn this when I was, I think, 21 or 22. I remember that time, I think maybe I was in my third, let's just say I was 21. And what happened was I just felt like I was so behind in life for reasons that were not my fault. I went to this university that strikes. There are strikes. ASU used to strike all the time. So lecturers would be like, we're not teaching and you can't do anything about that. I had timelines for when I would achieve this or when I wanted to accomplish something. And I just felt like those timelines were just slipping by. And it was frustrating because it's not even my fault that I'm going through this. And I had to sit down with my dad. And I told my dad that, yeah, I'm kind of feeling the birthday blues. And this is from somebody that loves their birthday. I'm feeling the birthday blues because I feel like I'm behind. And he asked me, why do you feel like you're behind? And I mentioned that everyone I went to secondary school with, they've either graduated or they're graduating during this time. And I'm here, I'm not even in my penultimate year of university. I don't even know when university is going to continue. I feel like I am trapped in this space. I can't move forward. I just feel like I have to wait for it to just play out. And it gave me really good advice. But one thing that stood out to me is that everyone is running their race, and it's a marathon, not a sprint. I mean, it didn't say it that way, but that's the way that I interpreted it, where everyone is really on their own lane and everyone is doing their thing. And there comes a time in life where the playing field kind of levels a bit, where everyone is kind of like on the same pace. But generally, one thing we need to learn how to do is not compare ourselves. And this is also for me because I'm going through this creative journey, and I realize that I compare myself to other creators that maybe blow up within a year, or doing this or doing that, or they are having more success than I am. And really, whenever you wake up is your morning. So you have to let go of timelines. And especially as a woman, where they give you timelines of your body is going to age at this point, and if you don't get to do something at this age, it will be too late. As a woman, you should do this and that. One thing that I would say is now encouraging is that the goalpost has now moved. I think it used to be by 30. Now I think it's moved to maybe 45 or even 60. So we're getting somewhere. The thing about timelines also is that you can start and stop and begin a new thing at any age. I think Vera Wang started her bridal fashion line when she was maybe in her 40s. If you're looking at how timelines work right now, you would think if I don't start at the age of 20 something, it's too late to start. The thing is that time will pass anyway. So start whenever you want to start, stop whenever you want to stop. Just let go of timelines. And I think you'll be able to breathe better, and you'll be able to just sit in your decisions and make better decisions without any rush. And speaking of timelines, another thing I think we need to work on is our risk tolerance. We have such low risk tolerance that we choose environments that don't favor us because it is comfortable, or you have some sense of comfort from it. For instance, if you hate that you're treated this way in your house and you want more freedom, you would rather just stay there feeling trapped than maybe pull together resources with a friend and get an apartment that'd be uncomfortable, or couch surf. And this, for me, like I was in that particular situation where I was thinking, should I get my apartment? Should I get an apartment by myself? And then I put together like the bills of it and the type of life that I live, and I'm just like, I can't do this, and I can't sleep on someone's couch, so I'm going to be uncomfortable here. I mean, I found my way around that particular situation. But I feel like we have to develop a risk tolerance where we are okay with being uncomfortable to be able to achieve a goal. Taking risks is really a big part of life, because what is that saying? Take risk and succeed. You can either fail or you can either succeed. And if you fail, you will learn that this particular risk did not work. And then on the other hand, if you succeed, it will pay off. And because you are doing something that is uncomfortable, because you've gone out of this zone that you are used to, you would realize that you have a different type of drive to make sure that this thing actually works for you. And I think the last one, which is really important, is you have to get your money up. I won't lie. Money stops nonsense. And I think the reason why there is so much financial control is because if somebody is giving you money, they believe that they should have a say in how this money is spent. And I won't lie, that is really fair. We would like a world where that is not the truth, that someone is paying for your expenses and paying for your day-to-day life, and you're making all these decisions that they do not agree with. But that is really not the case, sadly. I wish that was the case. But it is not the case. I had to, first of all, change my whole relationship with money. I had to realize that, first of all, I have to make my own money, and I cannot be relying on my parents fully for money. I started working at university to try just kind of figure out different ways I could make money. And this is coming from someone that doesn't even like to be uncomfortable. I actually found remote jobs during the time, like before COVID, before remote jobs really became a thing. I was working hybrid somewhere, writing, and I had to really learn that for me to start gaining some sort of financial independence, I had to do hard things. As a writer that time, I didn't really like everything I wrote about. I had so many creative differences with my editor, but I had to do that hard thing. As time went on, whatever decision I was making in those instances, nobody was questioning me, because quite frankly, you are not paying for it. I am the one paying for it. And so I can make those decisions. I remember when I posted my wedding video on my vlog channel on YouTube. How did you get your parents on board with this? Or how did your parents allow you to have this type of wedding? Now, context. My wedding, which was my civil wedding, we had 30 people in there, which was like the main like white wedding. We had 30 people. It was very small, very cute, very intimate. That is outside the norm of a typical Nigerian wedding. A typical Nigerian wedding has hundreds, thousands of people. And when they asked this question, I actually smiled. And I said, we paid for it. Since we paid for it, we could make any decision we wanted to make concerning the wedding. And that is when I realized, like, truthfully, how freeing it is to have your own money. Having your own money, it takes steps. It doesn't all come at once. I mean, some people are lucky. Maybe they get this job that just, gives them a lot of money. When I left uni for the first 3 months after, I was making 40K per month. So it can take a while to build that up. But if you want to speed that up, you can pool resources with your friend. You can decide to start applying for better jobs. You can decide to upskill. I would say learning a new skill is never, ever wrong. You'd be surprised the type of skills people are looking for nowadays that pay really well. And that can just kickstart that particular journey to financial independence. So, all in all, to the girly who is studying pharmacy, if you ever see this and you want to stop creating, I would say don't stop. As long as you're doing well in your schoolwork, I would say keep going. And to that person who is trying to figure out how to navigate this type of situation, I would say take each day as it comes. You have to be stubborn sometimes, honestly. You have to stand your ground on a lot of things. And that would be really uncomfortable at first, especially if you're a people pleaser. But the more you put boundaries and the more you stand your ground, the more you make your points known. And lastly, I would say that you should stop suppressing your desires. Stop suppressing the things you want, because you realize that at the end of the day, you become bitter when you see people that are living their life freely and are not waiting for permission and they're not holding back. So I would say it's time for you to stop holding back and let go of a lot of these societal, cultural, parental expectations and live your life, because you don't want to wake up one day and look back and wonder whose life you're living. So yeah, we've gotten to the end of this episode. I hope you got one or twos out of it. I hope you also got to know me a bit better, and I've enjoyed chatting with you. And yeah, thank you so much. See you in the next one. Bye. Cheers.